Okay, so to help with this steep shoulder plane during this backswing, it's important we use our legs correctly as well, because if you're not using your legs, if you're trying to keep the flex in your knees as you're swinging and get this steep shoulder plane, you're going to have a very limited backswing. So one thing we want to try and get is using these legs in the correct motion. So it's a bit like a corkscrew. So as our right hip goes back in the swing, you'll see the left knee goes forward. So we're kind of creating this bit of corkscrew movement. So as we swing back, so we're keeping the shoulders nice and steep. See the right hip going back, left knee going forward, and then we've got this nice steep shoulder plane. Hi there, so Shane here from Shane K Golf, and we're going to go through 3 simple tips to consistent ball striking. Okay, so some of the most common things I see in the golf swing that create inconsistent ball striking is coming out of posture and throwing the club at the ball on the downswing. And they are kind of related as well. So I'll just show you what I mean by the coming out of the posture and sort of throwing the club. Now, when we take our backswing, you want to try and maintain good posture as you're swinging. Now, if you're standing up in your swing, then that's going to put your swing plane out. So if you're swinging and we're lifting up out of posture, we've lifted up, so then we have to go down again. But we can also either get the club too flat, but sometimes we lift up, we get the club too steep. So it's just very difficult to have a consistent swing. So what I would like you to try is make sure that you keep your shoulders nice and steep in the swing. So as you're swinging back, you're allowing your right hip to turn behind you. We're trying to get these shoulders nice and steep as we're swinging down to the ball. Now, what that would then allow on that downswing is that will then allow you to keep the lag. You've probably heard the term lag a few times, keeping this lag on that downswing as you're coming into the ball. But we'll get onto that in just a second. Now, a good way to train this shoulder plane movement is in your reflection. Okay, you need to be able to see this, so either train in front of a mirror or a window, or just get your phone out on a tripod and just keep filming your swing and checking your shoulder plane movements, because you'll be amazed by how much how flat we can get it sometimes. So it's trying to focus on getting those shoulders pointing down somewhere in the area of the ball. If we're flat here, then we're probably lifting up and our head comes above the line. So you'll see if I'm here in my setup, the last thing you want is your head to be bopping up on that backswing, because that will really put you out then into the downswing. So step number 1 is actually to maintain, okay, your shoulder plane, and imagine there's a shelf above our head. Just stay below that shelf as you're swinging back. That will really help with your consistent ball striking. Now, step number 2 is to maintain that position on the downswing as well. But actually, on tour, the average height drop on tour is about 4 inches. So they actually get closer to the ball. And that's how we're then able to keep this lag. If you think about it, if we take our backswing, we've got into a great position here, but then as we come down to hit the ball, if we lift up, well, if I hold onto my lag as I lift up, I'm going to miss the ball. Okay, so we need to actually get lower to the ball. So we hold our position, and then as we get down into impact, our left shoulder's dropping closer to the ground or moving closer to the target. We hold on to this angle we've created, then we're able to compress the ball, okay, and hold this lag, so then we can create more power. If we're throwing the club and lifting up, we're losing power and we're adding loft. So these are all things that add up to that inconsistent ball striking. So it's really important that as we do swing down, we're maintaining posture. Okay, we're trying to keep this shoulder plane pointing down at the ball again through impact. One thing you will not see on tour is the shoulder plane flat as they're hitting down to the ball. You'll see that all the great ball strikers in the world, your Rorys, your Dustins, your Brooks Koepkas, they will all have a steep shoulder plane as they're coming down into impact. Now, if we're trying to do that and we're not moving our legs, you're going to find that very difficult. So here's step number 3. As we are coming down into the ball, okay, as we're coming down into impact, we're dropping lower, our left shoulder working close to the ground, and then up. You want to feel like your left hip is working out of the way. And to do that, it's kind of a push off the ground, and the left hip should work up and behind you. So we're working our left shoulder down, then we're pushing up that left leg, up and left. So that's going to help with the power and create that strong strike there. Okay, so to help with this steep shoulder plane during this backswing, it's important we use our legs correctly as well, because if you're not using your legs, if you're trying to keep the flex in your knees as you're swinging and get this steep shoulder plane, you're going to have a very limited backswing. So one thing we want to try and get is using these legs in the correct motion. So it's a bit like a corkscrew. So as our right hip goes back in the swing, you'll see the left knee goes forward. So we're kind of creating this bit of corkscrew movement. So as we swing back, so we're keeping the shoulders nice and steep. See the right hip going back, left knee going forward, and then we've got this nice steep shoulder plane. That'll also help your arms work up on a steeper trajectory as well. So we don't want the arms being too flat around here, because you can see what that's done to my shoulders. It's really flattened them out. But in turn, we also don't want them kind of being up there, because we're then disconnected and we'll have inconsistent ball striking. So left knee forward, right hip working back. You might straighten your right leg a little bit. That doesn't matter. I noticed on the TV the other night, Colin Morikawa, he's actually got a very flexed right knee in that backswing. He doesn't actually have a whole lot of hip rotation, but I don't recommend that, because you'll get knee and hip and lower back injuries by doing that. So allow a bit of rotation there. Let that right hip go behind you. Let that right leg straighten a little bit when you have this hip motion. So it's keeping that right hip moving behind you, left knee going forward, shoulders on that steep plane. So you're seeing as your right shoulder working up, left shoulder just stays down to get you in that nice steep shoulder plane position for that backswing. Okay, so those 3 pointers, we'll just run through them again. So the 3 steps of consistent ball striking. Number 1, make sure you maintain that posture in that backswing. So we're working the shoulders on that steeper plane, working this right hip behind us, left knee forward. Step number 2 is maintaining this posture during that downswing. So we stay in this posture, shoulder plane steep again as we're working through, but we're also making sure that we actually drop our heads a little bit as we come into impact. And it's not like a drop of the head as you're coming down. It's actually the left knee's kind of squatting down. Our lower body's getting a bit lower, allowing us to then push off the ground as we come through. Okay, so that's step number 2, is making sure we maintain that posture as we come down. We're not lifting up. That enables us to hold this lag throughout that downswing and again get the compression as we hit through the ball. And then step number 3 is allowing this left hip, so as we're coming down into impact, kind of about when shaft gets to about parallel, you then want to be pushing up with the legs and getting that left hip out of the way. That also helps keep that dynamic loft down and angle of attack down as you're hitting into the ball, so then you can compress that ball, so then you get that nice strike and that crushing feeling when you hit that ball away. Okay, so we'll just run through those pointers again. So from setup, making sure we got a good consistent posture. Then step number 1 was making sure we get that steep shoulder plane over the ball, right hip working behind, left knee going forward. Step number 2 was making sure we maintain this posture, but actually holding onto this lag, and we get lower to the ball, so that right shoulder is getting closer to the ball, holding onto the hinge in the back of the right hand as we're driving down into the ball. Step number 3 is then getting that push off the ground. Really feel that your left leg is pushing up, almost like you're jumping, left shoulder working up. So then you're able to keep this lag through impact as well, and the left hip is working out the way. So let's just have a hit and we'll show you those pointers. And there you have it, the 3 simple steps to consistent ball striking. Okay, so if you want some game improvement tips, head to Shane K Golf and you can book a call and we can have a chat and see how we can help you with your game. And if you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, then hit the subscribe button. And if you've got any comments, please just comment in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.